Greetings, everybody. We're back again. I'm Renee Cannon. I'm with Dr. Walter Simmons, as always, and we are back with the session of Money Matters.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, you should have been with us 2 weeks ago. We had to take a break last week, but 2 weeks ago, we discussed this important topic of paying for college.
Yes.
And I wound up getting a lot of feedback from that one after the session was over, with people telling me, just how sound that information was and how good it was for them to hear, because they're seeking to put their kids and grandkids through school even now. So I'm very thankful, Dr. Walter Simmons, for you pouring into us from the deep reservoir. This is a resource that we have, especially being an associate dean at a university. If there's anybody that can talk about how to pay through school, then we've got the right man on the line with us this evening.
Right.
This evening, we're going to go ahead and have a conversation about local banking tips. That's something that's very important, because I know that each of us, we are dealing now. Back in the day, they would cut your check and such, and you can take it and you cash it wherever. But now, we're generally dealing with direct deposits and such. So all of our money is generally kept within these banks. So we want to talk about some local banking tips this evening. And before we do so, I just want to go ahead and have a spiritual nugget with you from the Bible. You see it here on the screen from Exodus chapter 22 and verse 25. And I'll be real brief, but here the Bible says this. It says, if you lend money to my people, this is God speaking, to the poor among you, he says, you are not to act as a creditor to him. You shall not charge him interest. This is the word of the Lord. The word of the local banks and systems here, but this is the word of the Lord unto his people. And what he is saying right here, he is saying, look, there's going to come time amongst you when you're going to need to borrow some money. He says, now that when you're borrowing money to one another, what I don't want you to do is be charging these people inordinate amounts of interest and such, so that you keep them in debt, in bondage to you forever. That's the core meaning of this verse. But I think that there is a secondary application that we can see. And the secondary application, Dr. Simmons, that I see from this text is that God actually expects for these people to do some banking.
That's right.
Implied within this text is they already have a system. And you got to think God is talking to people who is just liberated from the bondage of Egyptian slavery. That's the context of Exodus 22. And he is expecting that by the time this word reaches them, that they would already have begun to set up their own banking systems. And then also embedded within this is not just a message to the lender, but to the one who is borrowing, because it's also saying that you don't want to be going to people who are charging you interest up to your neck. He is saying you need to be wise about the people that you are borrowing your funds from. So, of course, we don't have this system in which our people are not charging us interest. We're always dealing with interest. But because we are, I think it is important for us to be shrewd about choosing banks and understanding how to navigate within the banking system. So with those things being said, I want to invite Dr. Simmons now to take us away and begin to help us. I got this question that we want to put out here. And the first question we got that we want to throw out is, what type of bank should we even be using? Or rather, let me stop and get back even before that. Why do we even need a bank account whatsoever?
Oh, Pastor, the world has become so sophisticated. Our grandparents, great-grandparents, they used to put that money underneath the mattress.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they put it underneath the mattress, and, they saved at home. We had home banking, because they had no access to banking institutions. And the thing about banks, banks provide us with convenience and security, right? And the typical process, the bank allows you to deposit money, to take out the money when you want it. It allows you to use credit, debit cards, and it allows you to save for the future in a very secure way. So we do need bank. In this modern world, it's a convenient way to live and to exist. So we need bank because bank is a facilitator. It's a medium of exchange, but they provide a lot of different bank now provide not just banking service, Pastor. You can use the banks to pay all your bills.
Man, yeah, the bill payer function.
That's right.
And
think about
having
COVID.
Automatically take that money out so that you don't have to even think about it.
No, you don't have to. So banks are important. Now the question is, what type of bank should you use?
We're even dealing with it before we even move there, because you were talking about some of the perks of banks, and I'll tell you this about I bank with Navy Federal Credit Union. Big shout out to them. We got commercial.
Yes.
And I've used them a couple of times. Each time I've needed a car, I actually talk to the bank. And the bank, what they'll do is they will actually go, my bank, I don't know if this is everybody's bank, but my bank will actually find cars that suit what it is that you need, and you will get a better deal on these cars when you're going with the bank. Also, when I moved to this area and looking for housing, the bank supplied me with a realtor and such that was highly rated and very credible, and helped me to find a place to live. So you are correct. The bank, there are so many different things that you can do from a good bank, that you certainly need one in your life.
And you talked about credit unions, So you have the commercial banks, then you have the credit unions, and usually the credit unions are owned by their members, And what credit unions do, they usually give you better rates on your car payments and so on. They give you better rates, and also too, with credit unions, because it is most times it's member driven, or some type of cooperative driven, is that sometimes you get better deals. I'll give you a case. I'm an auxiliary member of Buckeye Credit Union. I sit on the board, and sometimes you have situations where you can go down, Pastor. That anyone could walk into a dealership and get a car. You can get a Mercedes, BMW for $70,000, and what institutions like the credit unions do sometimes, they said, my brother, my sister, your income is just 20 grand a year. We are free to buy what we want to buy, but here you are buying a car for $70,000, $80,000. And they said, why don't you consider getting something a little less pricey, so you wouldn't have your entire paycheck would be going towards. So what I'm saying is that some of those credit unions, they become your counselor. They counsel you.
Oh,
they said, I'm willing to say, I could give you the car for $70,000, but most likely in a couple of months, I'll be taking that car back because you can't pay. So, the credit unions, I would encourage people to consider the credit unions because you can build more personal relationships with the credit unions.
So you're saying to consider a credit union?
Yes, because they provide, and we say that, well, basically, our option is that you can do the commercial bank, you can do the credit, or you can do the credit union. Both of them, when you're deciding on which one to choose, the main consideration for me would be the type of service I expect from them.
Okay.
And I think both of them give you good service. As a matter of fact, the commercial banks, they are more elaborate, so you'll get more services, but you'll get a lot of personal attention from the credit unions. And one thing you must remember now, make sure that whether it's a credit union or whether it's just your commercial bank, make sure that they have insurance. We call that FDIC, federal insurance. The federal government must insure them. What that means is that you should be insured. All your account will be insured for up to $250,000. So in case the bank goes bankrupt. Now the credit unions also have the National Credit Union Association. and this is like the FDIC. So you are insured also for $250,000. So you make sure one, so you can choose a credit union, you can choose a commercial bank, and Pastor, you can also decide to go online. You can do online. You can choose an online bank.
Talk to me about that insurance thing,
Mhm.
because that's a new idea for me,
Mhm.
in ensuring that the bank is insured by FDIC and such.
Mhm.
What are some instances that would actually cause for you to need to fall back on that insurance? What are some
Well, no,
things?
it happens like that. Just in case, let's suppose that you have a deposit in a bank or credit union. Well, what if the bank or credit union goes bankrupt?
Mm-hmm.
Then what are you going to lose? Well, you're going to lose anything above $250,000. But for example, let's suppose that you and your wife, you have a joint account at
Mm-hmm.
the bank, all right? And the bank, in your joint account, you have $700,000. Well, if it's a joint account, your wife is insured for 250,000, and you are also insured for 250,000.
Gotcha.
You know, so
Gotcha.
that's just security, to give people the
Understood.
security that they can put their money in the bank, and if anything goes wrong with the bank, the federal government guarantees that you're going to get up to $250,000.
That's key because a lot of the, I suppose, the trepidation that I had about banks when I was younger is not knowing what is happening to my money. And then I would hear that they don't even really have the cash in the bank, that it's just a bunch of numbers and such. And I was always concerned, and we would read about the Great Depression and these
Yeah,
banks crashing and such, and people losing their money, and it just made me want to keep my money in the house. But if you get a bank that is insured by the FDIC, then up to $250,000 of your money will be insured. You will be able to receive that back. I'm glad
yes,
to hear
yes.
that.
And Pastor, you're right. Up until, the FDIC didn't come into play until 1933. That's
Mm,
just after, the
okay,
Great Depression
gotcha.
was
Okay,
1930s, right? That's
right.
why people were losing everything.
Hmm.
The bank went bankrupt, you lost everything. But after 1933, with the emergence of the FDIC, then people became more confident in the banking system, you know. And online banking is a real viable option because online banking, one, they usually give you higher interest rates for your savings. And by the way, just to back up a little, so what can
Online
you
bank.
do? Well, remember now, brick and mortar means that huge overhead.
Hmm.
Online banking, for the most part, they don't have all these branches. The
Hmm.
branches are a cost, and the bank
Right.
has to cover the cost. With online, not many brick and mortar buildings, so they can offer you higher interest rates. They
Oh,
are Oh yes, they do. They do offer higher interest rates, and they provide exact same service as your typical brick and mortar bank. So that's a good option. People, again, there's some skepticism, but I don't see where the skepticism lies because today we live in a technological world, and the online banks are also FDIC insured. So you just have to
mhm.
make sure that they're FDIC insured. You're getting better interest rates, but again, you lose some of the personal service in terms of
Well,
going into a
I
bank.
think you kind of hit it, because whenever I want to talk to the bank, I never go into the bank. I call and we have a conversation there. But
Exactly.
I rarely, I don't remember the last time that I've actually been inside of my bank. And some of the places I've lived, they didn't like. I just moved from Charlottesville. They didn't even have a Navy Federal Credit Union for I think the closest one was like Washington D.C. So I never even went.
But you can still utilize your credit union
Right, right,
because
right.
you can call them online. You have a debit card. You can still use the checkbooks and so on.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter what the location of the bank is, really,
Right. So
because of the
online banking,
technology.
yeah, yeah,
The online
absolutely.
banking is a good option. But again, make sure that that bank is insured. If it's a
Hmm.
credit union, make sure that they have insurance, and they're obligated. When you go next time you go to a bank, look, there is a sign that says that FD member
Yeah,
FDIC.
I can see it in my mind now. I've
Yes,
never thought about it until you said it, but now I can see it in my
it has
mind.
to be there. So once you open a bank account, you have an option. You can open a savings account, a checking account, certificate of deposits, mutual fund, So again, you can do different type of businesses with a bank. And again, it's important. It's important that if you have a checking account, if you're paying bills, if you have to pay bills, and you have monthly commitments, it's a good thing to have a checking account. Be careful with the fees now, because usually the bank charges some fees, So again, you can negotiate. Again, that's another thing we have to realize. You can negotiate. You said, well,
Chase does. I've got a Chase account that does, but I don't really keep any money over there. And they will penalize you. If you're not paying attention to what you have there, if you don't have it, they'll start taking money out of there. So I was kind of reading about local banks and such too. As Dr. Simmons says, you have to be aware of those things. But I would even almost kind of recommend you, just like the Bible verse kind of reminded us, that you need to be aware of these interest rates and things that are being charged.
Right.
I would try to find a place that is avoiding, some of those minimal fees, if it is possible at all. I would.
And it's possible. You shop around. Banks offer different services. Some banks, they'll waive fees on check, no fees on checking account, no fees on savings account. The big guys like the Chase, and I don't want to pinpoint bank. They can afford to charge more. But the local banks, they give you personal touch and so on. So you have to know the product you have. And anytime you're paying out money, you have to look to see, okay, what are they charging me? And you have to be careful when you have your checking account. Don't overdraw. Because the fees on overdrawn checks could be pretty high.
So you'll be paying for it twice.
Yes, basically, you pay for it twice. So and it's easy to open an account. You could open your account online. Basically, all you may need is a driver's license, really. A driver's license and some form of identity, social security number. You fill out your application, and you make your deposit. And for most banks, it could be they start $50, $100. So it's a simple process. But you have to have the right document, because there is a lot of things now called money laundering. People launder money. So they really want to know who you are. So you most likely you have to present your social security number, and for tax purposes too, because within the banking system now, and if you're aware, anytime you deposit more than $10,000, it has to be reported to the federal government. They're keeping an eye on you. Yes, So it's and again, there is a lot there. I mean, part of the things I sent you, you could go on. There is website, www.nerdwallet.com. You could go in there and it will give you all the most popular online banks that you can utilize. But Pastor, like everything else, I like to go back to our first program. That budget, it's because the bank, because again, it comes down to the point that people still using your bank, and you're paying a cost if you're overdrawing on your accounts. So you have to be
in a good bank. One of the perks about banking online and such is they have budgeting tools online.
Exactly.
And they'll show you. I've got a Huntington account as well, and they'll show you how you're spending your money. They got a pie chart.
Yes.
That'll tell you exactly what it is that you're doing. And one of the things I've done, I learned this from a friend, and it's been a help to me, because at the Navy Federal Credit Union, the additional checking accounts are free. All of them are free. So what I do is I started to create several different checking accounts, and I allot whatever some of my expenses into those actual accounts, so I know what is there. So for instance, I've got my regular spending, then I've got the mortgage money, then I've got the money for school. So when all my money comes in, I'll begin to allocate it into those separate accounts.
Exactly, Pastor. All banks have for that. You can have your mortgage, you can have your utility bills. It's like you compartmentalize them.
Right.
And the bank software, it provides you with a statement telling you where your money went to.
Yes.
If you are spending, they say, oh, you're spending a little bit more than you did last month. So they provide you more or less with a budget, an internal budget, to make sure that you're accountable for
Yes.
your money. And that's what we preach from the beginning, Pastor, that accountability, where your money is going, how you spending your money. We have to be aware of that. And those small things make a big difference. Because if you know where your money is going, you know where it's coming from. Most of us just don't know where it's going. So yeah,
that's the great mystery.
Definitely, because we talked about credit and how people believe sometimes credit is free money, but there is always a day of reckoning.
That's right, and it's coming on the first. Yeah,
but yes. But the banking system, we have a sophisticated banking system. Some people, some older folks, maybe they're still scared of it, but there is nothing to be scared about. Information and knowledge. Knowledge is the key. Knowledge and awareness. My point as an economist is that we always look for the most efficient way of doing things. If you're going to do something, you ask yourself, what's the most efficient way of doing that? And efficiency means, what's the most economical way? How can, financially, we're talking about, how can I get this thing done with the least expense, but still get good quality that I want? And if you train your mind, if you train yourself to get the right information, then you can really navigate those things and becomes part of who you are. And believe you me, this is a good way of being a good steward.
Yes.
It's an excellent way because there is accountability and you're taking the necessary step. And those things, you do that with your money, most likely you would do that with other aspects of your life.
Man, that was very good. I like the way you tied it all back and brought it to the budget. We want to seek to, budget our funds so we know where our money is going and such. We are accountable for how we spend, and the bank, it serves as a tool in order to help us to do that more effectively and more efficiently.
Yes, it does.
And I'll tell you this, as we wrap up, that budgeting thing is really on my mind in these days. In fact, I thought about it. I was standing in line at a gas station. I came to the gas station. I pumped the gas, and I said, I want a few snacks. So I went in there. I had some snacks in my hand, and I was standing behind a lady, but something was wrong with the machine. So I wound up waiting 3 and 4 minutes, and I said, this could be the Lord telling me, I'm out of budget anyway. What I'm doing is wrong anyway. And I put the snacks back, and I left the store. These things are starting to stick within my mind. As we've been rolling in these money matters, it's been a blessing to me personally. So I'm encouraging you, if even if this is your first one or you missed some sessions, that you want to go back and catch those previous sessions, especially if you were not tuned in for our first session about budgeting, because that is the basis from which we build in
the benchmark. That's your reference point. Yep, that's your benchmark.
Everything comes back from there.
Indeed, Pastor, indeed.
Yeah, so we've hit it, and I thank you again for pouring into us.
Wonderful
on this evening. We encourage you now, as always. I don't want to let you go without this, but if you've heard something that's been good to you, pass it on. This is what my grandfather used to say. He said, whenever you receive something good, don't just hoard all the information. He says we come up as a people when we are willing to share. So just as our economist of the hour, Dr. Simmons, has poured in and shared with us. If we've heard it, it's been good to you, we're encouraging you to share it as well.
Yes, indeed.
And then if you want to be a blessing onto our church, here we are. You can log on to your Cash App. We're # Temple of Praise SDA Church. You can write in whatever you feel like writing within there. We got several things that you can give to. You can give to our building fund or our windows and such. You're able to give your tithe or an offering there. We got youth departments and such. Just earmark it, and then our good treasurer will put it where it is you've designed it to go. You can also do this by visiting www.adventistgiving.org. You see it scrolling across the bottom of our screen. Type in Temple of Praise. Once you get there, you can go to local offering, go to our conference side, and you can give howsoever the Lord moves you. Or you can mail it in the old-fashioned way. We are the top SDA church, the Temple of Praise.
Yes, indeed.
We're at 1985 Green Road, Cleveland, Ohio, 44121. Again, we thank you so much for tuning in with us, and we'll be again with you on next week. God bless you. All right, we made